Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be talking to you about the labour and delivery of my second child, April. I've already made a video about the birth of my first child, Libby, so I'll put the link to that in the description box down below. So it would be great if you went to watch it. If you enjoy it, then please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. So if you've already seen the video about the birth of my eldest girl, Libby, then you will know that it was a pretty horrific experience. Not everything really went to plan. Forceps were used in the end, had an epidural. It wasn't very fun. Labours generally aren't fun as far as I'm concerned, but it was pretty horrific. Delivering April was a completely different experience. I only have positive things to say about it really. So to give you a little bit of history about my pregnancy with April, very similar to Libby. Uncomplicated, no issues. This time there were no bleeds as I'd had in my first pregnancy, and my blood pressure was fine pretty much all the way through too. So yeah, smooth riding throughout the pregnancy again. Libby was 9 days early. In the end, April arrived 9 days late. And I can tell you that that was torture, absolute torture, waiting. Anyone that's been overdue will know what that feels like. And for me, particularly because I'd had Libby early, I kind of just thought that might happen with my second pregnancy as well. But it didn't. So I felt by the time I got to my due date, I almost felt like I was already 9 days overdue because Libby had come so early. So by the time I actually got to the day that I went into labour, I felt like I was 18 days overdue. It was every day I woke up, still pregnant, no contractions, awful. Anyway, so I'd had 2 stretch and sweeps, nothing had happened, and I was due to go in for an induction on the Tuesday. Because at that point I would have been 10 days overdue. And oh no, I don't think it was an injection. I think they were going to do another stretch and sweep and then induce the next day on the Wednesday if nothing had happened. So at this point I'd kind of resigned myself to the fact I'm going to be induced, and that was really disappointing for me because after the experience of my first labour, I wanted it to be as natural as possible. When I had Libby, the only midwife-led unit that was available was in a separate hospital, and if there were any complications you would have had to be transferred to Southmead Hospital, which is completely the other side of town to us in Bristol. So I decided I wasn't going to do that, and I'm glad I didn't because there were complications. So I was already in St Michael's, which is closer to us. However, with April, St Michael's had since in the time since I'd had Libby, opened a midwife-led unit within the hospital. So if you needed any intervention, you just had to be transferred 2 floors down. So I was really keen to have April in there. The likelihood of it happening is quite low because they've only got 4 rooms. So if they're particularly busy, then it's kind of unlikely that you'll get in there. But I'd resigned myself to the fact it wasn't going to happen anyway because I was probably going to be induced. So I was just carrying on my normal life. That day, Libby and I had walked over to Tesco's, which is only about a 10-minute walk from our house, but when you've got a 3-year-old in tow, it's like half an hour. So walking back was honestly like pulling teeth, and I was really tired at this point. You know, I was 9 days overdue, 8 days overdue at that point, sorry. This was on the Sunday afternoon. I was just exhausted and just felt really impatient and fed up generally. So we did that, and Ryan had been at work since, well, he'd been up at 4:20 that morning. His alarm had gone off, and he'd been at work since 6 o'clock in the morning on a 12-hour shift. So Libby went to bed and we carried on our evening as normal. And exactly as happened in my first pregnancy, it was in the evening where I started thinking, I'm pretty sure I'm having contractions here. It's the same feeling started in my back and radiated round to my front. And second time round, I knew, right, this is contractions. This isn't Braxton Hicks. I know this is contractions. I decided that I wouldn't say anything to Ryan, just in case it wasn't going to happen. because he had been up so early that morning and was exhausted, and he was due to be up the same time the next morning. So I thought, if this isn't happening, then I don't want him to be up all night and then have to go to work on no sleep for another 12-hour shift. So we went to bed, he went to sleep, and things were getting more and more painful. And I decided to take myself off downstairs and bounce on my bouncy ball, my gym ball. So I went down about 11 at night probably, and stayed down there till about 1:30, 1:45 in the morning, just bouncing my ball. And the pain was so much more in my back this time than it was with Libby. It was really, really sore. And I just watched a bit of TV, watched some YouTube videos, and just kept bouncing. And I had an app on my phone where I was timing the contractions, and they were getting quite regular, and they were getting longer and longer, and I realised that this is definitely it. So about 2 o'clock in the morning, I came upstairs to bed again, and I couldn't bear to lie down on my back or on my side. It was so painful. So I was on my hands and knees, just kind of rocking through each contraction. And Ryan stirred at about 3 o'clock, and he said, "Oh, are you all right?" Obviously realising that I was on my hands and knees. "Are you all right, darling?" I said, "No, I'm in labour. I'm definitely in labour." And he said, oh, okay. And then he rolled over and went back to sleep again. So I kind of think he probably hadn't really woken up, but he just went back to sleep. And it wasn't until his alarm went off at 4:20 that he woke up properly, realised I was still rocking on my hands and knees on this bed, and said, "Oh, do I need to call work and tell them I'm not going in then?" I'm like, "Yeah, you do need to do that. I'm having a baby." So anyway, he called work, said, "Oh, I'm not coming in, my wife's in labour." We'd always had a concern about what we were going to do with Libby while I was in labour with April, but thank God it couldn't have been timed better really, because she goes to preschool on a Monday and Tuesday, so this is now the Monday morning. So Ryan got up and took her to preschool as normal, and I called my sister-in-law Maria and asked her if she could pick Libby up from preschool if this was the real thing. And that was all fine, and we arranged for Ryan's mum to come up from Weston, and she was going to stay overnight with Libby while we were in the hospital. So that all worked out absolutely brilliantly. We called the hospital. They said, "We are really busy at the moment. If you can stay at home, if at all possible, please do that." So that's what we did, and they again advised to have a bath. So I got up and sort of tried to keep moving, was on my ball and had a bath. But I can tell you, the bath was awful. The contractions got more and more intense, and they got closer together and longer. And we thought, actually, whilst it was awful, this was a good thing because it was making everything happen quicker. So we rang the hospital and told them what was happening, and they said, "Yeah, come on down." So we went down to the midwife-led unit, which I was so pleased about, and they examined me. Not before a fire alarm went off, by the way. We got there, I was just about to go into the examining room, and the fire alarm went off. So I had to go from the top floor of the hospital, which is like 5 or 6 levels up, and you can't obviously use a lift when the fire alarm goes off, so I had to come all the way down the staircases in labour, stood on the pavement for 20 minutes while they sorted out this fire alarm, which was a false alarm, thank goodness. Yeah, stood on the pavement outside St Michael's. Yeah, in labour. So anyway, at least there was loads of midwives around, so if anything was going to happen, they were there. Anyway, everything was fine. We went back up, and they took me into a room to examine me, and couldn't believe it. This is so unusual, especially in a big city like Bristol. But I knew both of the midwives that were there. There was one midwife and one student midwife. The midwife I had seen when I was in hospital with Libby, so nearly 4 years prior. That's when I had a bleed, and she looked after me when I was in there having a bleed. And the student midwife I'd seen in the community throughout my pregnancy with April. I just couldn't believe that I knew both of them. That is so rare. So anyway, they examined me, and I was only 1 centimetre dilated. I kind of thought that might be the case. I just wanted at that point to go in and be examined to know how far along I was. It was pretty disheartening to know that I was hardly dilated at all. And I was quite upset, and I was actually just really scared that the same thing was going to happen that happened with Libby, that I just wasn't going to dilate, because it was like 20 hours with Libby and I was still only 2 centimetres. So I was really frightened that was going to happen again. But Sue, who examined me, said, your waters are just really, really bulging. And as soon as those go, you will dilate really, really quickly. I thought, okay, great. So we went home, just tried to keep on my feet and carried on bouncing on my ball. And at this point, it was, oh gosh, about 6 o'clock in the evening. And we tried to watch a film and I couldn't really, because the contractions were getting worse and worse. And it was all in my back. The back was horrendous. And I tried to have another bath. And I was in there for about 2 minutes. And I just said, Ryan, get me out. I can't bear to be on my back. I just hate it. I hate being on my back. So, yeah, I was just bouncing on my ball. And then Ryan's mum came home with Libby, because they'd picked her up from preschool and taken her to my sister-in-law's house with her cousin. Yeah, so they came home, and I didn't really want Libby to see me like that, because obviously I was in a lot of pain. I couldn't speak to her that well, but I managed to give her a cuddle and say, Mummy's okay, we're going to be having the baby very soon. And anyway, Ryan took her up to get her bathed and get her to bed, and Kim, Ryan's mum, stayed with me. She was rubbing my back, and that's when I started to be sick. They really started to get intense, and I started to be sick. And she was saying, you sure you don't want to go back to the hospital? I was like, no, they said that, I won't dilate until my waters go. I just wanted to wait until my water's gone, because that's what they'd said. But she said with one contraction, she literally saw my bump drop. And she said, I'm just going to go and see how Ryan's doing. So she went upstairs and said to Ryan, you need to take her back to the hospital. And he was like, really? She said, yeah, don't listen to what she's saying, just take her in. So Ryan came downstairs. He's like, right, babes, we're going back to the hospital. I was like, okay. And at this point, I just couldn't think for myself. I was just in so much pain. So we walked out to the car, and in the car, they were getting worse and worse and worse. And by the time we got to the hospital, I could barely walk myself into the midwife-led unit. I was stopping every 10 paces, just holding onto Ryan's neck, leaning right over. And we got up to the midwife-led unit, and one of their amazing rooms was open. They've got 2 small rooms, which are lovely, lots of low lighting, but no birth pool. And they've got 2 larger rooms, which are amazing. They've got like a double bed in them, and lots of low lighting, sort of fairy lights, and a lovely birth pool. Just, if it wasn't the fact you're about to give birth and it would all be a bloody massacre, then you'd think that you were in a lovely little hotel. So we went in there, and I think they could tell straight away, yeah, she's close. So they got me on the bed and examined me, and with that the emergency bell went off, so the midwife had to run out of the room before telling me how far I'd progressed. All the while I'm left on the bed on my back, which is exactly where I didn't want to be because it was so painful, for about 10 minutes. And then the midwife came back, so apologetic. She's like, right, anyway, good news, you're 6 centimetres. I thought, oh my God, this is amazing, because I was so worried that I wasn't going to dilate. So yes, do you want to get in the birth pool? Yes. I had been uncertain about whether I wanted a water birth, but getting closer and closer to the date, I'd realised, no, I really would love to get in the pool. So we got in the pool, and obviously the bath had been awful, but that's because I'd laid on my back in the bath. Our bath isn't big enough to be able to, be on your side or anything like that. So I got in the birth pool, and it's lovely because I could be on my knees in the water, and it's a lot hotter than I thought it was going to be, because they say only have lukewarm baths, but it was really a warm pool. Got in, so I must have got in about 9 o'clock in the end. Within about 10 or 12 minutes, my waters went, and that's a really weird feeling your waters go. Yeah, and I looked up at Ryan and said, oh, I think my waters have just gone. He's like, yeah, no shit. They really have gone. So obviously he could see it everywhere. Wasn't very attractive. Lots of bits floating in the water. And within 9 minutes of my waters breaking, April was born. So when I'd got in the pool, I'd started on the gas and air, because things were really, really intense. I just needed something to really help me concentrate on my breathing. And the gas and air is brilliant for that, because you breathe it in and then you blow it out, and it's really great for helping you concentrate your breathing. So my waters are gone, and my body just took over. With Libby, obviously I hadn't really felt any of this because I'd ended up with the epidural. My body, I just didn't feel it naturally pushing. But with April, I could feel everything. And whilst it sounds horrific, and of course it was incredibly painful, it was incredible. I just felt my whole body contracting, and I just knew that I needed to push. And I just started pushing, and I could feel her head crowning, and I felt the exact moment that her head was born. And it was great because the way the baths are, they're quite high, and then they have a little sort of puffy cushion that your husband or birthing partner can sit on, so you're completely eye level with him. So I could look right into Ryan's eyes and he could look back at me. And what was really lush about it being in the pool is that, you know, the midwife's not really intervening at all. She just had a mirror on a stick that she could put into the pool with a torch, and she could see what was happening, whether the head was being born or whatnot. And occasionally they came in with a handheld Doppler that they put on my belly to monitor the baby's heartbeat. And yeah, she obviously could watch what was happening. She was like, oh, you know, breathe and then pant to let the head be born naturally, so to minimise any tearing. But I could feel everything, and you feel that head be born. It's like, oh my God, amazing. And then with the next contraction, I knew, right, the shoulders are going to be coming out now, and I could feel everything, and it was amazing. It really was amazing. I could feel her shoulders, and as the baby is born, they sort of turn to allow the shoulders to come out. So I felt that happening, and I felt her come out of me, and I was like, oh my God, she's been born. And the midwife, I just kind of thought that the midwife would pick them out of the water, because I hadn't really given it any thought, to be honest, but I thought the midwife would pick up the baby. She said, Karen, if you reach down, you can get your baby. So I reached down in front of me and just picked April up out of the water. And it was incredible. I thought, I've done it. I've done this on my own. I've given birth just with gas and air, and I've done it on my own. And I was so keen to do that because of all the intervention that I'd had to have in my first pregnancy and labour. So to know that I'd done it on my own was just an amazing feeling. So I pulled her out of the water, and my first thought was, she looks like Libby. Was my first thought, and she really did look like Libby. And I think she was so small. Bearing in mind, Libby was £6.4 and she was born 9 days early. April was born 9 days late and she was only £6.10. So she obviously needed the extra cooking time. So I pulled her out, and they just left me in the water. They said, stay in the water, keep her nice and low. So I kept her nice and low and just cuddled her into me. We're both under the water. It was, you know, incredibly warm in that birth pool. And I stayed there for about 10 minutes, I suppose, and Ryan called his mum. And she's like, oh, is everything okay? And then she could hear April crying. She was like, what? You've only just gone to hospital. She's been born already. Because she was born at 24 minutes past 9, and that was less than an hour after I'd arrived at the hospital. So Kim was right to tell us to go in. You must always listen to your mother-in-law. So, yeah, I held her in close to me, and then they said to Ryan, do you want to cut the cord? And Ryan said, no, I want Karen to do it. So I cut the cord myself. They clamped it, obviously, and let me cut it. And then they asked me how I wanted to deliver the placenta. And I wanted to get out and do that. So I got out, and there's like sort of cushions and a padded area on the floor. So I got out and did that on the floor. And then went over to the bed and was examined, and I just needed a couple of stitches. Excuse me. Just needed a couple of stitches. Yeah, so hardly any tearing really. And I can tell you, I was on an absolute high for weeks. And it was so nice. I could just go and get into this double bed. Ryan could lie beside me with our baby. And I was able to get up and have a shower. I couldn't do that with my first, because I'd had an epidural. I had to have a bed bath after labour because obviously my legs weren't working, so I couldn't get up and get in the shower. But this time I could just get up and go in the shower, and left April with Ryan. And it's so funny, just this little afterthought. I heard Ryan walking around the room afterwards while I was in the shower, and I heard him say to himself, oh my God, There's blood everywhere I look, because it was in the bath, on the floor, on the bed, on the way to the bathroom. But that's labour for you, that's delivery for you. Yeah, so I was on an absolute high for weeks. So there you go. That's my experience of my second labour, the complete polar opposite to my first. So I'm here to tell you that it doesn't matter whether you've had horrific labours before, or even if it's your first labour and you're really, really worried, it can be a really, really positive experience. Honestly, we are quite sure that we do not want any more children. 2 is the maximum we're having. We don't want a third. But I can honestly say that if I would have the chance to do that labour again, I would, because it was really, really incredible. So like I said in my last video, anybody having any children coming up, like your due date's imminent, then good luck, you're going to be fine. Lots of deep breathing and positive thoughts, and good luck. So I hope you enjoy listening to my birth stories. I know I love a good birth story. If you did enjoy it, then please give it a thumbs up, and it would be lovely if you subscribe to my channel. Take care. Bye.